All right, so guys, I want to move right along and just continue sort of on the same track. What we created is the subdivision of the surface panels, basically. So if you're going to show the panels with a little bit of a gap or some kind of thing that's going to actually show that the glazing is not just one surface, because what's going to happen here is if you render it out like this and you haven't created a tiny little gap, like if you haven't reparametrized it to make it slightly smaller than the panel itself, and I'm talking like scale it down by a factor of like 0.995, then you're not going to be able to see that the glazing has a break. It's just going to render as one solid surface. So keep that in mind. I'm not going to do that right now, just keep that in mind. However, I do want to talk to you about a couple of ways of starting to develop the geometry that you're going to use for your louvers, and that's going to be part of your requirements. When I showed you this right here, I am going to require a pipe-based louver system. It's going to be simple, it's going to be pipes, and I'll give you some dimensional requirements for that, but we'll talk about that in a moment. But some of the ways that you're going to begin to approach that, okay? And I'm telling you, this is a beginning. It's not the end. I'm just going to give you some hints to get started. You need to deconstruct this subdivided surface, obviously, right? We know that we use that for a million other things. So you're going to surface and deconstruct something like this. Okay? So these points are all going to be coincided with the slab elevation. And from that, let me go down here. From that, you can do a couple of things. You can isolate some of the edges. You can subdivide the surface and just grab particular faces if you wanted to. Only certain parts of the building are going to have shade, something like that. But the more important thing here is that you have to pick whether or not you're going to use a normal or a world axis. And here's why. And you don't have to follow along right now and actually do this. I just want you to see it so that you know what the difference is. If I am going to create, say, just a surface, right, that kind of extends outward. I'm using that as just a placeholder right now, right? I need to grab the edges that will generate that louver, right? So one louver at the top of each of my panels is going to go outward. So 0 to, I don't know, I guess, what are these quadrilateral? Yeah, we're going to go 0 to 3. So that one's a vertical edge. I'll change it to, that's the bottom side top, okay? So I can grab an edge like this, and I can go through the process of actually extruding it. If I wanted to get my surface normal, I can do it using the usual method, surface closest point, evaluate surface, and I can say this and that, and find the centroid, and use that. Okay, so I've got all these individual surfaces here with individual normals. I have an equivalent, so 28 normals. I have 28 surfaces. And so if I wanted to extrude them, the geometry would be the surfaces, and then I have normals that are going to need to be amplified. I'm going to go rather large here, so I'll say 0 to 10 feet, just for example. So you're going to run into something like this. Oh, I only need one of these, actually. Hang on. Or, no, they just need to be grafted, actually. Graft. There you go. So what you're going to run into is that each of these panels is going to extrude in a slightly different angle. And that's because obviously you created a warped surface, so every single one of those normals is facing a different direction. So you need to be aware of that. If you don't want to use the normals, let me just kind of disconnect this actually. And if you wanted to extrude them all in the world, y-axis or something like that, that's probably going to be more efficient for you because you pick a certain direction and you make it happen. So I'm going to use the world Y. I'll plug that same 9 feet in. It might have to be a negative. Yeah, it's going the wrong way. So let me change this to a negative. There you go. Okay, so you can see that this is obviously going to be a much cleaner approach to the actual extrusion of that sort of geometry. Right? Maybe, possibly. So I want you to be thinking about what's going to serve you best. If you need it to extrude in a different direction, you can draw a line and create an axis off of it and then use that to extrude. Ying, you look scared. All right. So there's one more thing that I want to offer up as a super, super, super powerful tool. Surface Box. So all of this stuff right now is just kind of playing around, so you kind of know what to do. Let me give that a cool color. There you go. So Surface Box is going to be super awesome for you to be able to do stuff like this. And it is because Surface Box basically just needs your subdivided surface and a domain. So it needs the base surface, it needs the domain, which is essentially going to be the same thing. So surface and domain. And then you tell it how high it's got to go. So I'm going to say -10 to 10. I don't know which direction it's going right now. Let's see. There we go. Outward. Turn that off. So this one, it's going to create a. It depends on what kind of surface you're using it on, and to tell you whether or not this is going to work for you the way you want it to. But basically, it's going to kind of warp everything outward off of the surface itself. See that? But the cool thing about that is that you can actually isolate it. So I can deconstruct it. So I'll go to Surface Analysis Deconstruct, plug that in, and it creates surfaces off of it that I can use as actual geometry. All right, so yeah. There are some parts of that are going to be useful, but other parts are not. Okay? So I think your best friend for all of this is going to be these components right here, your divide domain and subdivide surface, because you're going to be breaking down a lot of geometry. Oh, and list item. List item is going to be a big one. All right, so are you ready to discuss the actual final deliverables?
Yes.
Any questions about this right now?
Can I have the file?
Huh?
Can I have the file?
You should have developed your own file here.
But I mean, after that you add.
Oh, this stuff? Sure, yeah, I don't care about this.